I'm going to have to speak extremely quickly to try to get through this before the projector decides it's not going to stay on. So. That's right. Okay, here we go. I apologize. Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to speak to you about a topic that is very important to me. It's a pleasure to be here. As Betsy mentioned, for about 8 years, since 2004 in fact, we've been planning a major construction and facility renovation project that will support science, education, and research at Vassar. The goals of the project are multiple, but fundamentally boil down to enhancing the teaching and learning of science in a time when the major problems facing the world today will require scientists working across scientific disciplines and alongside non-scientists. Whether those problems involve issues of global health, generating sufficient clean energy supplies, or avoiding environmental disasters. Chemists, biologists, economists, computer scientists, physicists, engineers, politicians, business leaders, citizens, and more will need to work together. It is essential, therefore, that the education we provide our students prepares them to be effective players in such a complex, multidisciplinary arena. Whether they choose to pursue a career in science or a related field or not, and our facilities must support and enhance our ability to provide that education. So, key elements in our approach to science education include cross and multidisciplinary learning and research, the opportunity for research collaborations and creating a collaborative environment. Most of education, as you can imagine, including in the sciences, occurs in the classroom and in the laboratory, in traditional teaching laboratories. But at institutions like Vassar, at small liberal arts colleges, our science students learn a great deal of what it is to be a scientist by collaborating with faculty and with other students on original research projects. And so much of what I'm going to focus on today is actually how, and provide examples for, is how we introduce our students to research in the research laboratory. Another aspect of, or another key element to science education today is providing state-of-the-art instrumentation and facilities for our students and faculty, and focusing on hands-on learning. That is, learning in the laboratory, learning in the field, essentially learning by doing. So I will, as I'm giving this talk, or as I provide examples to you, I'll touch upon all of these key elements to science education several times. Currently, our science buildings at Vassar are scattered across campus. I don't know how many of you are well-versed with the layout of our campus, but here is main building here. And it's a little hard to see in this light, but the buildings that are outlined in red and yellow are our science buildings. So we have Olmsted Hall, which is the biology building, if you're familiar with that. There's the earth science building here. Computer science is located in a building we call the Old Laundry Building. The psychology building is Blodgett Hall, which is over on this end of campus. Chemistry is here in Mudd, and physics and astronomy are here in the physics building. So the science departments are scattered in multiple buildings throughout the campus. One of our goals with this project is to pull the science departments physically together in order to enhance the opportunities for sharing core facilities and instrumentation. So one of our ideas then is to locate a science neighborhood around what our most effective science building is today, which is the biology building. Olmsted Hall was built in 1972. It's a good, strong building. It has great laboratories. It needs to be upgraded in significant ways in the heating and ventilation systems and so forth, but basically it's a well-designed, good, strong building. So the idea at the beginning of the project was to pull the science departments closer to Olmsted, where we could create a science neighborhood which would allow the interactions between the science faculty and science students in buildings that were either conjoined with one another or at least in close proximity. One of the hallmarks of a Vassar education is the emphasis we place on cross and multidisciplinary learning. In fact, we were one of the first undergraduate institutions to establish a major in biochemistry in 1969 and a major in neuroscience and behavior, then called biopsychology, in 1971. More recently, in 1983, we established a program in cognitive science, a field that bridges computer science, biology, psychology, and philosophy, and also have programs in environmental studies in science, technology, and society. All of these programs, as well as the traditional disciplines upon which they are built, such as chemistry and biology, are best taught and learned when the faculty and students working in those fields are in close proximity to one another. When we look at floor plans later of our renovated and newly designed buildings, I think you'll better understand how this proximity is important for both traditional disciplines and for multidisciplinary learning or multidisciplinary programs. After many years of programming and needs analysis, and working with the architectural firm called, and I'm going to say it wrong, Ennead, that's right? Ennead Architects. Ennead Architects from New York City. We came up with a plan which includes two major renovations, a partial renovation, and a new 80,000 gross square foot building to accommodate the majority of our science programs in this so-called, as I like to call it, science neighborhood. So what we've decided to do in this project is to fully renovate our physics building, so a gut renovation of the physics building, which will be renovated to house physics, astronomy, and computer science. So computer science is coming out of the basement of that old laundry building. They'll cohabitate in the renovated physics building. We're going to fully renovate a building called New England for part of the psychology department. The building will be used for what we call dry psychology research, for laboratories that don't require intensive chemical work, don't require a lot of heavy, air handling systems and so forth. So there will be research labs, teaching spaces, and offices in the New England building, which again will be fully renovated. We'll renovate 25% of the biology building to house the remainder of the psychology department. That would be the fractions of the psychology department that are more wet lab intensive, so neuroscience, physiological psychology, those kinds of areas will be housed in Olmsted Hall. And then we have a new building, which is a building we call the Bridge Building, because it literally is designed as a bridge. It's essentially a two-story bridge spanning a small stream that runs through campus that's known as the Fontaine Kill, and which you probably drive over every day if you drive down Raymond Avenue. It runs from Vassar Lake. If you're heading south on the right side of Raymond, it goes under Raymond Avenue and heads through the Vassar campus, so through this kind of woodsy area here. So the bridge building spans the stream, and it will house primarily wet laboratories for chemistry, biochemistry, earth and environmental sciences, parts of the biology program itself, some services for cognitive science, a robotics lab, and so forth. So in total then, the project involves two full renovations, a partial renovation of our existing biology department, biology building, and a new laboratory building for primarily the wet sciences. In addition to the programming and needs analysis work that we've done on campus, through our planning process, the faculty, administration, staff, and students, together with the architects, have developed several what I might call institutional goals for this project. One of the things we wanted to accomplish from the beginning was preserving and renewing our existing assets on campus. And as you can tell, we've got major renovations as part of this project. It's not simply building new buildings. Buildings that we are renovating, as well as the new buildings, must be accessible. They have to be ADA compliant. And our older buildings on campus, many of them are not. And so this provides us with an opportunity of making those older buildings ADA, in ADA compliance, as well as, you'll see, connecting parts of our campus through accessible walkways and via this new bridge building. Our buildings will include shared common spaces. These are in contrast to shared laboratories, common spaces for student study groups, for meeting spaces, for people to just casually come together, have a conversation, share ideas, spontaneously brainstorm, those kinds of things. In conjunction with the college's goals for sustainability, and our project is seeking LEED certification. So the two major full renovations for New England and for Sanders Physics are both right now certified to be undergo the LEED process and will end up being LEED certified. The new building, we're aiming for LEED Silver. We may go beyond that, but I can't promise that to anybody, so I'm saying we're targeting LEED Silver for the new building now, which is really quite an achievement given the intense infrastructure for the scientific programs in that building. Another very important aspect of this project to us, as Betsy mentioned, it covers a large amount of acreage on campus. About 12 acres or so of the campus are included within this project. And so one of our key institutional goals is really to restore that landscape, and in particular to restore the part of our landscape that is underneath the bridge building in the Fontaine Kill watershed. And so we're including very important elements of stormwater management. We're capturing rainwater from the roofs to feed the plants in our greenhouse. We're removing invasive species and replacing them with native plants and so forth. So we really are restoring the landscape underneath the bridge building, as well as the landscape surrounding the rest of the project, including, I should mention, a wetland restoration along that Fontaine Kill stream itself. This is a schematic, it's reversed by 180 degrees from the last image, so if you're disoriented, I know why. Here's the Olmsted building again. Here's the new bridge building spanning the Fontaine Kill. Raymond Avenue is over here on the left, so north is up and south is down. And here's our physics building, which will be renovated, and the New England building for psychology. Again, 10 acres of landscape work and site restoration, new paths throughout this area, major stormwater treatment zones, and removal of invasive species and replanting with natives and so forth. Let's see. So what I'd like to do now is just go through some images of both the outside of the building as well as the floor plans of the building to show you kind of how the elements that I've been talking about in terms of science education and our institutional goals are actually reflected in the form of both our new building and in our ideas as we move forward with the renovations of the older buildings. So this is a view from Raymond Avenue towards this planned bridge building. Skinner Hall would be here on your right, and the chapel would be on the left. And as you can see, it is a bridge and it's curved, spanning the Fontaine Kill, which is running underneath. So what I wanted to point out in this image is really sort of the combination of solid materials on the face of the building as well as glass interspersed between them. There's a material called a fiber cement panel, which is what this white lighter regions are, and in between will be glass. So this is not a 100% glass building. And the reason for that is you want to balance the amount of glass in the building with the amount of solid surface to allow enough natural light, because that's good for reducing the use of electricity and so forth, but also too much sunlight then means that you're running air conditioning and you have to put money into those kinds of systems. And so for LEED certification, we had to work very carefully with our LEED consultant to get the right balance of glass and solid surface on all four sides of this building to ensure that we maintain the appropriate energy balances for making this as least energy consumptive as it possibly could be for a laboratory building. The other thing I should mention, which you can't see in the image, but I can tell you about it, is this glass that we have in between these panels has a sort of a unique frit design in it. It's a ceramic frit that you've probably seen in glass panels before. Frits are normally included in glass panels both to reduce sunlight into the building, but also in this case to prevent bird collisions with the building. So we have a frit that's been designed by one of the architects who is very active in the Audubon Society and is very concerned about bird-building collisions. And so the particular design of the frit pattern in this glass is done in such a way to reduce bird-building collisions and also to, again, manage the energy that is, and balance the energy in the building through reduction of sunlight. So just to point this out, one of the points that we're getting for our LEED certification process is a bird building collision point. This is a pilot point, if you're familiar with LEED. It's not an accepted point yet, but we're piloting it, and hopefully other people will be able to earn that point in the design of their buildings in the future. So that's kind of exciting for us as we move forward. Here's another image of the building from the south. This is a little bit more of a close-up, showing you, however, the side of the building that faces east. Again, Skinner's here on the right, Olmsted's in the distance behind there, and it spans the Fontaine Hill. On this side of the building, you'll see sort of a sunscreen that covers the windows. This is a bank of offices primarily on that side of the building on the second floor. And so this sunscreen, again, filters light that comes into the building at certain times of day more than others, and still allows plenty of natural light into the building as well as views out. The first floor of the building is a public corridor space. You can walk actually from this end of the building, walk in along the public corridor and to the other end of the building, which then brings you to the main campus itself without having to go down through the ravine and back up the other side. So it really is creating an ADA compliant or handicap accessible path from the south portion of our campus to the main central portion of the campus. The glass in this part of the building on the lower level is again a special bird-safe kind of glass. The glass on that side of the building actually has a UV coating in it, which is barely visible to the human eye, but which birds see. And again, this is the idea here, is to reduce as much as we possibly can the bird-building collisions in this corridor, which is a natural habitat. Again, inside, I mentioned common spaces as being important to our programmatic elements throughout this program, and this is just an example. When you enter the bridge building on the north end, you have a public corridor, a small cafe, and then an area outside, a small patio, and inside clusters of seating for students and faculty from across campus, not only from within the sciences, to spontaneously, find each other, come together, have conversations, maybe meet and do homework, work on, grant proposal, whatever it is that people are doing in this area. And there'll be seating on down through the rest of the building as well. Upstairs on the second level of the bridge, again, in a similar fashion, here you have clusters for students, again, student study spaces, whiteboards for writing on the walls and so forth, laboratory teaching space on the left-hand side, and on the second floor, faculty offices on the right-hand side in this particular image. Just to give you an example of the way we've approached the renovations of our older buildings, this is a cross-section of the New England building, which, as I mentioned, will house psychology. And one of the things we're trying very hard to do is to, of course, we have to meet all codes and expectations that way, but we also want to maintain as much as we possibly can the real beauty of this historic building, and actually to improve that historic quality as we go about the renovation. And so, just for example, one of the things we're doing in New England, it has a beautiful central staircase which switches back in the middle. Currently, a third staircase has been added in this region, which blocks the light that was originally meant to come down through the building and filter down into the entry level. And so one thing we're doing in the renovation is we're removing the staircase that's been added to go from the second to the third floor, and opening up again the skylight and the lay light in the center of the building to really create almost an atrium-like space there, which it hasn't been able to experience for quite a while. We're adding a staircase instead towards the front of the building, and we're adding some other staircases and entries and so forth for fire code reasons and et cetera. In the physics building, again, it's a full renovation from top to bottom. The The side of the building is currently not accessible on grade level. We're regrading that side of the building so that one can access the building on grade and not have to go up or down stairs. One of the programs that will be in this building, I mentioned it will house the physics department. I just wanted to provide an example of some of the work that's done in the physics department. This is one of our physics faculty members, Brian Daly. He has an ultra-fast laser lab in this building now. It's not the greatest place to have a laser lab in a 1920s building that hasn't been renovated for the past almost 100 years. He has problems with, as he describes it, battling air conditioners and dehumidifiers. You know, you put the dehumidifier on and it creates heat, so you turn the air conditioner on, and it's just this continual battle between the two. And in our new building, he won't have to worry about that. He won't have to worry about his optics getting wet and moisture messing up his electronics and so forth. And so Brian, I can't describe clearly what he does, but he uses ultra-fast lasers to study thin films and nanomaterials. He's interested in very rapid time scale on the picosecond level time scale phenomena in thin materials. And his research is funded by the National Science Foundation. He works with many students in that laboratory. I know this is difficult to see. This is a floor plan of the upper level of the bridge building, and I'll just describe some of what these spaces are, and then I'll provide you an example of what might happen in these spaces. And let's see, I have to get these in the right order. So one suite, we've kind of divided the building up into suites. As I mentioned, this is the second level. It attaches to Olmsted Hall. The third, or the top floor of Olmsted, is directly connected to this level of the bridge building. And that's important because on this level of Olmsted exists our cell biologists and our molecular biologists, and they closely work with the chemists in the chemistry department who are doing biochemistry. And so there's a nice, neat flow between faculty that have natural overlaps in their research. And in fact, we are creating a biochemistry instrument facility here, which can be shared by both departments and students in both departments. We have a teaching lab for biochemistry that will be used by both departments, and we have a number of faculty research labs connected to the teaching lab and in close proximity to the instrument facility, so that instruments that are housed here can be used not only by faculty and students in both departments, but also by students in research labs as well as by the students in the teaching labs. There's a cold room for housing samples and equipment that needs to be kept cold, like fast protein liquid chromatography equipment, and there's an independent lab for the development of new projects that one cannot fit in other parts of the laboratory space. I just wanted to give you an example of a project that's taking place in the biochemistry suite. This is a project that's ongoing and will move into the new building, but it's an example of the kinds of collaborations that occur on campus. This is a project that is ongoing between two of our chemistry faculty members, a biologist, and a computer scientist. And the project involves studying lipids in sea anemones to better understand the molecular basis of symbiosis. One of our biology faculty is very concerned about symbiotic relationships, especially in coral reefs. As you know, symbiosis is essential to the maintenance of coral reefs. And so looking at lipids, they can better understand the basis of symbiosis. And so here's one of our students who's very proud about having extracted lipids from one of these sea anemones. And the instrument here has a long list of initials to describe it. It's an HPLC QTOF mass spectrometer. That's a high pressure liquid chromatography quadrupole time of flight mass spectrometer. This was an instrument that, again, was purchased by a member of our chemistry department through a grant from the NSF. And it's actually a shared resource, not only for students and faculty at Vassar, but faculty that are colleagues of ours from across the country will actually send samples to our chemistry faculty. She'll analyze them then on the mass spec and send the data back. So it's a regional as well as a national resource to other researchers across the country. And it's an exciting project that, as I said, started about 2009 and is ongoing. Another example, in the second level of the bridge building, there's a couple of labs down at this end, which I know you can't read, but there's two inorganic faculty research labs and a X-ray diffractometer facility. We have a single crystal X-ray diffractometer. And, oops, which way do I want to go? I think here's images of some students that have used this instrument here in the background. This is our single crystal X-ray diffractometer. Again, it's an instrument that was purchased through funds from the NSF. We were the first undergraduate institution to actually purchase an instrument of this model. It was top of the line at the time. It is no longer top of the line, so we're going to need to get additional funding to upgrade. But many students work with faculty on this instrument. One of the ongoing projects right now is a project that's being undertaken by Miriam Rossi in the chemistry department. She's collaborating with other faculty in our department, as well as faculty at Mount St. Mary's and at Ramapo College in New Jersey. And the students and faculty from these three institutions are investigating how a kind of compound called chalcones act as basically radical scavengers, so as antioxidants in biochemical processes. So they're thought to be anti-cancer. They could be anti-cancer drugs, and so one aspect of the project that's being done at Mount St. Mary's is to take these compounds and see if they actually do have anti-cancer or anti-tumor activity to them. At Vassar, what our faculty do is analyze the three-dimensional structure of the compound so that we can better understand the behavior of the compound and why it may be or have anti-cancer properties to it or anti-tumor properties to it, or why it may not. So again, this is a shared regional facility. We have faculty from around the Northeast that have come and used this instrument because they don't have one in their home base. We've had faculty from NYU, from Union, I think we have colleagues at Marist that have come and used the instrument. It's really a wonderful resource to be able to share with our scientific colleagues. One final example, I think, on the entry level of the bridge, and again, I apologize you won't be able to see this, but we have a region here that's an environmental suite, and this suite, this aspect of or this portion of the building contains, again, a combination of teaching laboratories, research laboratories for faculty and students to collaborate in, as well as instrument spaces that house instruments which would be used in fields that bridge with the environment in some way. So one of the projects that's ongoing, as I mentioned, is a wetland restoration and green infrastructure project. A number of faculty a few years ago were involved in the Casper Kill Assessment Project, which you may be familiar with. The Casper Kill is another stream that runs through campus. And in combination with the Cornell Cooperative Extension, they received funding to establish a group called duchesswatersheds.org. And you can go to their website and you can see information about streams in Dutchess County. You can actually see data that's been collected on those streams and get advice about how to maintain a stream in your backyard and so forth. So these faculty have now extended their interest to the Fontaine Kill, which is the stream that runs under the building, and have received, again, additional funding from the DEC this time and from the Water Resources, I think it's called Institute, which is, I think, under the Cornell Cooperative Extension. And with this funding, what we're doing right now is we're analyzing this stream before construction begins. So the bridge building is going to be built over the stream. That means we have to dig way down to build piers on either side of the stream to support it. And so what we're doing is we're getting baseline data now so that we can understand the chemical properties of the stream. We're measuring E. coli levels. We're measuring benthic macroinvertebrates. Those are little tiny bug-like things that live in the stream. Basically getting a handle on what the baseline chemical and biological properties of the stream are. And then we'll continue those measurements throughout construction to see what the impact of construction itself is on the stream corridor. And then afterwards, we'll continue with these measurements after we've implemented the stormwater management processes that are distributed throughout the landscape. And after we've added back in native plants, replanted the riparian zone, and so forth. So the idea is that we'll get a pre and a post idea of what the stream quality is like in this area, have some idea of what the connection between construction and stream quality is, and hopefully be able to come to some conclusions about how green infrastructure like stormwater treatment zones and wetland restoration, how those kinds of infrastructures impact stream quality. This is a program that we're hoping to connect with the local community. We'll bring in school groups to help with monitoring, or to at least watch the faculty as they're doing some of their work, and maybe do some of the simpler analyses and so forth. So this is not, I hate to say it, this is not on campus. This actually is an image on campus. I think that's the Casper Hill. This is a stream across the Hudson in the Schwangungs, where I've done some work with some of my students in the past, but I needed another stream picture, so I kind of threw it in there, but I have to be honest about that. So again, just to remind you what the site plan is for this really extensive project. And as I mentioned, the impact on this stream is, or the lack of impact on the stream, hopefully, is something that we're very interested in monitoring and learning something about. Just in summary, I hope I haven't talked too long. Science in the 21st century, as I've described it at Vassar, includes multidisciplinary teaching and research, close collaborations between faculty and students on original research projects, and I've given you some examples of those. Sharing resources, that is sharing both physical facilities like spaces and things like that, as well as expensive equipment and instrumentation, which we cannot afford to duplicate. Hands-on learning, being in the lab, being in the field, learning by doing science, not simply by hearing about it. The facilities plan includes this new bridge building, as well as 25% renovation of Olmsted Hall, as I described, full renovations of New England and Sanders Physics. Financing for the project is going to be handled by a combination of gifts and a bond issue, and we're in a, as you know, probably a major comprehensive campaign right now, working on the first of those two things, and we hope to break ground in the spring of 2013, so a little bit less than a year from now, assuming we have board approval. So I'm happy if there's time to answer any questions. Thank you.
Questions? There is time. What's the total investment? Is there a price tag on
What
the
does it
whole-
cost? Is that the euphemism for what does it cost? It's estimated at $125 million. That includes all the renovations, the new construction, and the site work.
So we got the money guy here.
Marianne, for the LEED certification, is roof a green roof as well?
No, we don't have a green roof as part of this project. The place to add the green roof would have been on the bridge building. The issue with that is it adds quite a bit of weight to the building, and that adds steel and concrete and so forth, and therefore expense. And so one of the things we're avoiding is adding any more bulk to that bridge than we can. So we don't have a green roof. We have a small section of green roof, I should say, a very small section of green roof. I wouldn't really call it a green roof as much as part of the building's underground, and so it has, you know, grass on, or plantings on top of it, but it's not officially a green roof.
Yes. How many years do you think it will take this project to be completed, and do you anticipate some impact on the projects that you have going on right now, I mean the learning projects, and the impact on resources for students?
So the project we anticipate being approximately a 2.5-year project. So if we move forward with everything the way I would like to do it, of course I don't hold the purse strings, but I think logistically and so forth it makes sense just to start and get going at the beginning in 2013 with both the new construction and beginning the renovations during that same time period. It'll take a full 2 academic years plus the summers on either end to complete the new construction. So basically, if we start the new construction in the fall of 13, we would open for business in the new building in the fall of 15. And during that window, we could also do the other major renovations that we need to do. So renovating New England and Sanders as well as Olmsted. It's a real logistical sort of, I don't want to call it a nightmare, but it's a puzzle to figure out, you know, what you do with the programs that are displaced from the buildings when you're renovated. When you're renovating, we have the old laundry building will be, right now, is partially empty. It's got 2 floors that are empty, so we're using that as swing space. The real issue is going to be in Olmsted Hall, our biology building, which we want to keep operational for most of the time that the construction is going on. And there will be heavy-duty construction around it, as well as within it. And so we're hoping to concentrate that heavy-duty work in the summer times, not during the academic year. But that's some of the logistics that we're having to think about. You know, it'll have to do with scheduling our classes as well, and making sure that we use as best as we can all 5 days of the week. Students don't like to take classes on Friday, and faculty don't like to teach on Friday or early in the morning, but we're going to have to do all of those things to be able to accomplish this in that period of time. Did that answer, I think?
I just wanted to add that in terms of the planning and financing, we've hired Daniel O'Connell Sons as the construction management firm. That decision was made some time ago so they can be part of the planning process. That's a team that's worked on the Bard campus several times. Not sure about Marist, but I know they've been active in Duchess County. And I reviewed the bidding list. The project is going out for bidding, and we'll get a guaranteed maximum price before the board makes a final decision. But I reviewed the list of firms, and there's a significant representation of our New York-based contractors. Some of the construction is requiring contractors from outside the region simply because of the nature of the design. And we're trying to avoid, as you can all appreciate, New York City contractors. So some of the contractors are coming from other parts of Massachusetts or even some from Canada. We expect Dutchess County to be significantly represented in the construction teams that will be on campus for these connected projects. The other piece that I wanted to mention is that our board will obviously play a role in the determination of our final financing plan. We've gone over $40 million, I think, in commitments to the project in terms of fundraising from our alumni and friends at the college, and that fundraising will continue. But there is a bond issue in our future for this project to move forward, and I certainly hope to work with the alter ego of Mike Tomkovich and the LBC. And we were with the IDA in 2001 when financing was done for the Center for Drama and Film, the Vogelstein Center for Drama and Film. This project, we've been doing a lot of dormitory work in between, and so we were financing in a different way. But this project is going to be very appropriate for using that vehicle, and that also had a significant impact locally. The financing plan is yet to be developed, but we certainly hope to go back and use the local authority for the issuance this time. So we'll see how that. I think there are some significant impacts that will come with this construction, and we hope to get our approval in October to sign contracts and proceed. That's our plan.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy, for having us.
Well, thank you for coming.
And thanks, Pam, getting us to do another one. And motion to adjourn.